Here we are. I looked at this recently as to the list of episodes that you've joined me for over the history of the program. And you've been here since the early days. And yet, it really where we found our collective stride when it came to interviewer and subject is in these wrap-up shows.
Yeah.
And I didn't have enough time this year because I run a small business to go back and listen to all of the previous episodes, but they are amongst the most listened to shows that we have in the entire 116 episodes that comprise the So You're in Sales podcast. So no pressure, but thanks for coming back. And while this has remained the same, so much has changed in the process that this is going to be really, really exciting. So I'm really grateful for you taking the time to spend some time with me as we wrap up this year and look back on the previous 12 months that just were.
Yeah, I have no guarantees on this one, Roger. In my former role as the CEO of PPAI, there were a couple of these every few weeks, and toward the end of the year, I was in the rhythm of giving the wrap up. You always ask different questions. You always approached it from a different perspective. But this is it. I haven't had a podcast or a webcast or an interview in months, actually. I had my first one a couple of months ago. So I'm a little bit out of practice. I'm going to see how this works out for us.
Well, the thing I know about that absence is that you have completely enjoyed the anonymity that came along with not having to be in the rhythm of being the spokesperson for an entire industry. So let's just peel back the onion a little bit and see where we go with this. So the first thing I want you to know is I did a little research.
Okay.
The press release came out on November 17th, 2020. Breaking news, Paul Bellantone resigns as president of PPAI.
Yeah.
So I think you single-handedly started the Great Resignation.
Is that it? I've been blamed for a number of things, but yeah,
Well,
it wasn't exactly a resignation. I chose not to renew my contract. So I didn't leave midstream. I gave 5 months, 6 months notice on the front end. But like we talked about last year, sometimes you just know it's time. And sometimes you know that from within, and sometimes you know it because of outside forces. This one was a collaboration between the two of them. How do I want to adapt to and grow in and face these outside forces that were affecting business, affecting family, affecting myself personally? And I initially chose to take a year off. That was actually my goal. If you do listen to last year's, I was going to take some time off, possibly retire, choose whether to stay in the industry or to manage another association. I wound up having 4 days off. Mark Simon gave me from Friday until I think the following Tuesday. So take a 3-day weekend. But yeah, it's been a really interesting year, and I look forward to digging into it a little bit with you.
okay. So, and I knew that you would be humble, and certainly I don't assign you responsibility nor credit for what has become sort of a tidal wave of people making decisions about what they want the next phase of their careers to look like. But nonetheless, your decision in many ways was the harbinger of what became said tidal wave of people looking at what things used to be and saying, not so sure. Right.
Yeah.
And so
prior to this, Roger, and full disclosure, Roger and I spoke for 2 or 3 minutes before we got on here. And we talked about how fortunate we are in our roles and in the roles that we have and where we've chosen to be. I believe that if in the past, pre-COVID, you wouldn't leave the roles that we had because they were fabulous. You've made some choices to say, no, I'm going to go in this direction, even though it's not the easy one. I think had it not been for COVID, I probably would have accepted another term in the job because it was fabulous. It was, and I said it every year, the best job in the industry.
Yeah.
So I think it pushes, so many of us are standing on that ledge when we do our little life evaluations. And this was just a little nudge that I needed to do something different. But I'll tell you about the great resignation that I'm so happy with. Now, as an employer, very difficult finding people right now.
Yeah.
But the misconception is that people are sitting around taking free government money. And, and until we stop doing that, we're not going to have full labor force anymore. Read the numbers read the statistics on the number of entrepreneurs that have started their own businesses. Mm-hmm. To me, that's exciting. Some of them will find their way into our industry. But so many people have started their own businesses, whether, just a side gig or for some extra money that they've just decided to go, you know what, I'm going to be in this for full and give it a shot. Yep. So to me, there's real excitement in that great resignation. I'm looking forward to some of the things that will come from that and people who've become entrepreneurs. It's exciting.
Yeah. And whether you look back on it and 5, 8, 10 years beyond, when people will ask those same entrepreneurs how they got started, that question will be rooted in such emotion around the end of what was just this unprecedentedly long run of prosperity that we all were witness to, that was stable. And the funny part about it is many of the people that were faced with decisions in this pandemic were people who started their business in the Great Recession.
Absolutely.
So we know from historical perspectives that times like these have a way of creating environments like the ones that you're describing that are just so fertile when it comes to the development of people who say, you know what, if I'm going to be broke for a while, I might as well do something that I really care about.
Yes.
And to your point about me, like maybe I arrived at that decision a little sooner than other people who were forced into that decision-making process. But nonetheless, when this all happened, I looked at what we were doing and said to myself, like, no, we're doing exactly what we should be doing at this moment.
Right.
Let's just approach it from what would a brand like ours do in a moment like this, and do that. Right.
And I don't think that you give yourself enough credit, but it's those of us who watched you do that when you didn't have to, when there wasn't a pandemic or an economic crisis, looked at that and said, other people have done this thing, on any given day. Maybe this is the impetus I need to do it. Because, we've talked about this, that you took some big, bold steps creating the social good around what your around your passions before, without that giant push. Yeah. You could have very easily settled into something else and just had that be a side gig.
And then I most likely would be sitting here trying to figure out what to do, just like everybody else. So
That's right. You would have.
So it's just it's a matter of timing and luck sometimes. So the thing that I've always enjoyed about you and your personality is, while I believe you're a man of deep emotion, you are also really good at being a little bit of a disinterested observer, and just being able to kind of watch what's happening and take it all in and internalize it, and then formulate what you want your mark to be on things as they stand in that moment. You've had just enough time, in my opinion, to serve as that disinterested observer in your new role on the distributor side of the house. What have been some of the things that have been striking to you in that process that me asking you this question kind of brings up?
So you said disinterested observer. I'm gonna clarify that a little bit.
Okay.
Because of my role at the association, I was watching how suppliers and distributors and customers and suppliers and manufacturers interacted. And my role was how does the association bring value to those transactions?
Sure.
So it seemed disinterested, and it may have seemed unengaged, but that voyeurism created value in some ways by being able to look at it. Always interested, just not day to day. I would say it's the same difference as working on your business versus working in your business. You guys were in it. Yep. I was working on it.
Yep.
I am in it now.
Yeah, you are.
I am in it head first. I'm learning about all of the great things that come with being a distributor. I am learning those things during the difficulty of a pandemic and a supply chain shortage and a labor shortage and economic uncertainty. So I don't know. I don't know if what I'm learning is actually
real life.
What other distributors know. Is it really relevant? And will it be relevant when this pandemic, when we get to the other side of the pandemic? It has been a wild freaking ride.
Yeah.
So I speak for Halo, the company that I'm with, have the same challenges as every other distributor out there, maybe with a little bit more leverage. We have a little bit more leverage to influence things, but I'm talking to distributors every day, either potentially recruits or just colleagues that are having problems with they can't get product and they can't get labor and they can't afford the labor that they can get because it's priced out. We just deal with that on a different scale. And the other big change for me, when I was working with the association, my job was to advocate and grow the industry. Working specifically for one distributor company, my job is now to grow and protect our customers' brands.
Yep.
So again, it's from working on things to working in things. It's kind of macro, micro.
For sure. But now the nature of the relationship that you're fostering, you're doing some, hey, you're somebody in the industry, maybe Halo is a good place for you. That's allowing you to take advantage of some of the goodwill that you built under your personal brand in the years that you did the role you did. But now you're sitting at a table with someone who is a potential prospect and trying to understand from their mouths directly how the medium that we sell does or does not help them with the problems that they're facing in this moment.
Right.
Has it renewed your conviction in our medium? Has it eroded your conviction? Where in that process now, because you're doing the thing as opposed to encouraging those of us who were responsible for doing it? How's your perspective changed?
Well, I appreciate you making that differentiation between my role with Halo as, yes, we grow through acquisition and organically. My focus is on the organic side of things. Like, how do we get our AEs, the ones that we have, to be more successful? And I tend to be doing that by getting in front of their customers with them.
Mm-hmm.
And my, they don't, the whole concept of, when an AE introduces me and says, this is Paul, and he was the CEO of our entire trade association, the first question really is, what's a trade association? So then I tell them, like, well, what industry are you in? Oh, you're a healthcare, like the AMA. I was the guy who worked at the American Medical Association. So they get that. But the truth is that I was an advocate for the products, like the idea of branded merchandise as a way to influence behaviors.
Yep.
And I think that my 20 years has given me something to say in that arena. And I think it's been effective. I believe in it. Look, I'm a user of products. I actually came back to my home. I was gone for a little bit, and I had these boxes that we send out to clients and potential clients, the kitted boxes. And It was a holiday one. And I went through it and I was like, I'm looking at my table here. I have all these things. I'm like, this stuff is so cool.
Right.
And when I was with the association, I would get a lot of branded merchandise, but it was never really my brand. Now I'm getting things that have my brand on it too, and I'm very excited about it. So I do think it's definitely transferable. The excitement that I feel for promotional products, I'm actually one step closer to the buyer now. And I think that makes all, because I am one now.
Sure.
So I think it makes a world. Promo products work. I think that our entire industry has shown that we can help solve problems. Think back a year ago into this pandemic when companies did not know how they were going to engage and motivate and recognize that those employees that they hadn't seen in 9 months and would not see for another 4 or 5 months. We got really good at kitting. We got great at dropshipping. We got great at mail merge and personalizations on products. And
right.
we got really good at telling the story and showing up and earning the privilege to be doing business with them.
As a pure salesperson, being that this is still the So You're in Sales podcast, the thing that always was more attractive to me in working with prospects and clients was, tell me your problem. Don't tell me what you want to buy. Tell me your problem. Because our medium really does have a lot of malleability to it when it comes to the way we can adopt the things we have to bear to the problems that our clients have. And I actually believe that our medium improved in importance during the pandemic because we were able to do things like extend a corporate culture into someone's living room in a way that a digital ad just can't do.
That's right.
Right? That we can create a recruiting engine that produces products that reinforce the narrative of the values of the brand that's trying to recruit employees.
That's right.
In a way that when they empty out their bag at the end of the day with all of the other things that they've gotten from everyone else, maybe our story does a better job of telling why that person would want to work for that specific company than anything else that happens to be in that bag at that moment. So yay us.
Yay us.
Yes.
But it, from a servicing your own account. So if you already had a customer, I think it became even more incumbent on us to be doing fact finds to existing customers as it is to do it with prospects. And we actually came up with a list. I worked with a couple of people on it of 20 questions to ask your current customers about their business. 1, is your contact still there? Right. 2, what other roles do they now have in the organization? 3, how have their customers changed? 4, do you still have budgets? All of the things that your competition is asking your customer, you need to be re-asking your customer. Don't take for granted that their businesses remain the same, because they didn't. Are you working from home? How are you recognizing and rewarding your employees? You got to believe that a competitive distributor is asking those questions of your customers. So I feel like exactly what you said, we have a whole new set of problems that we need to solve right now. Don't sit around waiting for things to turn back to normal. They're not. We have new problems to solve. When we do this right, we earn every penny of the margin that we make. Every penny of it. So.
And that's the piece that you sit over there in that other chair and go,
that's right.
I don't know how these guys on the distributor side are able to bring in the margins that they're capable of doing. And yet a year later, you're sitting here going, geez, man, I think we're underpaid.
I think we're a little bit underpaid. We've earned every penny of it and then some. And then
exactly.
Some.
Exactly. And, from my perspective, I've long preached the role of trust in the sales process and why you can scale your organization more quickly if you create a trust-based environment.
Sure.
You have this amazing cross section of employees that are out doing the same work that all of us are doing day in and day out to try to advance their efforts in the race against everybody else who's doing the exact same thing. What have been some of the more noteworthy approaches or things that you're seeing within your four walls that, like, hey, salespeople, if you were only doing these three things, we've got all of these people here, and here's some of those three things that they seem to be doing that make them successful, even in the pandemic?
Wow. Big question. So Halo as an organization is really a microcosm of the industry. We have those AEs, those companies that came to us as companies through acquisitions. We have individual AEs that have joined us. We have the ones that are selling a couple of $100,000. We have those that are selling tens of millions. I think the ones that have done it successfully, and I don't mean this to sound like a plug for this company, because I know we all have the capability of doing it, that are now reaching to the resources of the company and bringing them to that customer.
Yeah.
Like we're fortunate. We have a Halo recognition, and we have our uniform division, and we have our kitting and the warehousing and all those things. I think somebody who is just focusing on dropship, let's say just dropship business, and we're very successful in dropship, are finding a place in their conversations for the recognition and the uniforms, and they're asking questions differently. So I would say that the successful AE at Halo are bringing in all of the resources to bear to help meet the need. I say that now, I'll put my industry hat on. Those resources exist for every AE that's in the industry.
Right.
It doesn't have to be through one company, because you can walk around the expo floor, in a couple of weeks, and go to brand and find the people who are doing recognition, and go to the apparel companies and see what they have in terms of uniforms,
right?
Or go find those companies that do kitting and fulfillment. So we just happen to have it all within those four walls, as you say.
Yep.
But I think the success is really by those who are bringing in resources that they never had to count on before, and maybe their customer didn't know to ask them about.
Yeah. So, all right. So if I asked you where your favorite hamburger joint is, and you immediately something comes to mind, and then I say, well, would you go there for spaghetti?
Right.
They may have the best spaghetti in the world, but you know them to be a hamburger joint. It's because nobody there ever said, Paul, have you ever tried the spaghetti? It's really amazing.
Yep.
Because when I want a hamburger, you're the first thing that comes to mind.
Right.
And we all know, especially in this environment, where what the pandemic has really done, if it's done anything, is it's harder to get the conversation started with people you've not talked to before.
Right.
And I'm not saying it's impossible. There's a lot of virtual ways for you to be able to replace those in-person moments when you might have a collision that leads to a conversation that leads to a connection, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So why not, if you've done the work to build the trust with the people who already do work with you, let them know that there's spaghetti on the menu, and that you actually make a great grilled cheese sandwich, and that the hot fudge sundae is really worth coming for on Sundays after church, because you never thought to do that, because the likelihood of the person who already buys the first thing from you believing that you can buy the rest of those things is far greater than what it will take you to try to get that first new person over that hump. And that's great advice, Paul. In the book, in that trust continuum I talk about all the time, this is something that you taught me way back in the day. I know you don't even really realize this, but you used to tell me that when you were with the principals of large distributors, the question that you would always ask them is, what can the association work on with you together?
Right.
Right. And so for my best trust relationships, regardless of the size of the organization, that is literally the question I'm asking them, is what can we together solve?
Right.
Because chances are there's something they'd like to solve, and they just don't know who to turn to try to solve that problem. In a moment where maybe we have a unique opportunity to have a dialogue with someone about something like that when in 2019, the economy was humming, nobody wanted to hear that crap. They were busy putting orders out the door and collecting their invoices. So now we have this much better opportunity to do exactly what you're talking about. So that's sage advice. I probably gave a longer reply than you did to the answer.
No, it's great. And I appreciate that you brought it back to trust. And I look at trust and brand similarly. Both of them are incredibly powerful, but also can be incredibly limiting.
Yeah.
I trust Five Guys to have excellent hamburgers. Their brand is excellent. Yeah, so your spaghetti hamburger thing is spot on. And it really leads me to recall the conversation that I had the opportunity to have with Seth Godin about the value of a brand. And I think you recall this. He mentioned Nike, right? If Nike built a hotel, could you envision it? Right. And the answer is yeah. Like I can picture a Nike hotel. It'd be cool. It'd have a healthy restaurant. It would be great color. The people behind the desk would look like the United Nations. It would be representative of everything. They'd have a great fitness center. And then he said, think of another great brand, Hyatt. Can you think of a brand? Would you think of Hyatt? Can you think of a Hyatt running shoe? The answer is no.
Right.
Doesn't mean they're not a great brand, and it doesn't mean that they're not a trusted brand. But how you put those into the marketplace make all the difference in the world. So if you have the trust and you have the brand, ask the next question, right?
And for me, as I contemplate thinking about, right, so what you were saying is, so they waltz you in, here's the guy, he used to be the guy, and the first thing that the person on the other side of the table says is
but what a great start.
Right?
Don't you wish that you can start every conversation with so instead of no, or so, like, so what? Isn't that's where the rubber meets the road, is on the so what?
Well, whether you're the former president of the industry's trade association for 20 years or a sales rep for an organization, it's your responsibility to be able to answer that question.
That's right.
And if you can't reliably answer it, then the likelihood of them seeing them in your hotel is pretty unlikely. And that's where really, for me, I think, and this is where I wanted to ask you the question. All right. So 21's behind us. We're not going to do the same thing like before. Like, forget about what happened this year. It's been an interesting ride. Some people are doing great. Some people are doing terrible. A lot of people have said, I was going to retire anyway. Maybe that's the thing for me.
Yep.
For the rest of us who are going to be left around as we go into 22, if Uncle Paul's back giving his sage advice around, like, what are some of the things that you would want folks having their mind on as they're clinking their glasses and singing Auld Lang Syne come 1/1/22?
Boy, I don't know what I would recommend to other people, but I do know what I'm going to be thinking about. And it's about remaining flexible. It's about not being so entrenched in a belief, which sounds so counter to everything that everybody's so entrenched in their beliefs. So take the politics out of it.
Right.
But not being so entrenched in a way of doing business that it becomes limiting to you. I mean, I look at this pandemic. We are on now, we're approaching 2 years. So we're probably on month 21 of this thing.
Yes, we are in month 21.
If I knew personally that this thing was going to last 21 months, I probably would have thrown in the towel and done something completely different. But what I did, and I think what our industry did, is we took it in chunks and we remained really flexible. And it's like, oh, you're going to throw a pandemic at us? Great. Oh, you're going to throw some supply chain at us? We're in for it. You're going to throw us some inflation? I got there. Oh, you're going to take all my employees and make it so I can't afford them? I'll take it out. And I think that by remaining flexible, we've been able to deal with these things as they've come to us.
Yeah.
Whereas if we had to deal with all of it, if we knew that we were going to be dealing with all of these things that the past 21 months has brought us all at once, I don't know that we'd have as many companies being viable in this as we currently do. People would have thrown in the towel and taken that early retirement much, much sooner. So from my perspective, if anybody takes any counsel from it, remain flexible, because I don't think we're at the end of it. I think there's going to be something else in 3 months and something else in 3 months. The supply chain issues may work themselves out, and inflation will ultimately even out a little bit, and the labor force will normalize a little bit. Something else is going to come. So just remain flexible. We've made it 21 months, right? 21 months. I would have never thought it. Somebody said, yeah, it's going to be a 2-year pandemic. I would have been. But I used to kid around about being like laying in the corner in fetal position, weeping. That would have been me. We'd be having a different interview.
We'd be having the promo on the road Costa Rica reunion.
That's right.
In the rainforest, because we just decided enough was enough. And yet, over the course of our discussions, there's been trade wars with China, and there's been all of this concern about suppliers going direct, and no matter what's happened, it's the thing you used to always say when you were president. It's like, we've gone through wars, we've gone through all kinds of tragedies, and we've managed a way to somehow come out the other side of it.
We just did them in a condensed version. We are scrappy. Nicole Stellar, she's with AIM. I forget who she may have been with AIM back when we had this conversation early in the pandemic. She said, we're going to be just fine. We're scrappy and we're resilient. Those became my catchwords for like the last year. It's like, no, we're scrappy and we're resilient, and we're going to make this happen. Now, we've done it over. It used to take 100 years to do all of the things that we've been dealing with in the last 21 months.
Right.
But we're scrappy and resilient, individually and collectively.
Every time you say scrappy, I think of Hamilton.
Yeah.
We're scrappy, we're resilient, we're going to not miss our shot. We're going to do what needs to be done to give ourselves an opportunity. And yet, and this is like on the flip side of this. So and we're running a little bit long, but that's cool. This will be the piece of it. So I keep talking about, when there's a dynamic changing economy, there's gaps that arrive. And it's in those gaps where the entrepreneurs create solutions that fill those gaps.
Yeah.
And that's usually where the outsized success starts to reveal itself. And that's, I think, where the friction we feel as a group is. We sense the opportunity because we see the gaps, and we know that there's solutions that we could bring to bear. It's the screwdriver and the hammer. We don't have any screws. We don't have any nails. We're missing wood. All of the traditional materials we may have used to build that solution are absent us.
Right.
And what I've been so astonished and amazed to watch is, well, we just created plastic out of algae, and now we're using that as our building material because we couldn't get the wood. Right. And it's that ingenuity that I like to celebrate. And I think that there's way more of that going on in our space than we give ourselves credit for, Paul. I really do.
And in our space, and even broader than that, it goes back to all those people who are becoming entrepreneurs. They're finding solutions to solve. I admire that. I am not as entrepreneurial as you might think. I seemed entrepreneurial because I was able to sit back, work on our business, kind of find solutions for different things. But I had always had the luxury of doing that with somebody else's money.
Sure.
Right. It was a nice salary that gave me the luxury of being able to look at the world the way that I did. I'm feeling a little bit more entrepreneurial now in this new role, but I do admire those people who are out there on their own time and their own dime, finding ways to fill those gaps.
Yep.
So
you're
bringing up a good point.
For sure. All right. So I am going to, I'm going to assume the sale. I'm going to pre-reserve you a calendar date sometime this week in December of next year.
Yeah.
What do you think we're going to be talking about?
I hope we're not talking about that we've gone through this pandemic for 33 months and how long it is. I think we're going to be looking, like right now, I think we're still in it.
Yeah.
But I think that we're going to be patting ourselves on the back a little bit and really talk about how we should be celebrating that we made it, that we're here another year, that our industry is still healthy, that we found ways to grow and protect people's businesses, that we'll be talking about how even through a pandemic and some difficult time, people cared about social issues and quality products that don't just become landfill. I think that those things that used to be fringe are going to be solidified into our way of doing business. And the fact that we did that in spite of everything that's going on, I think we will be celebrating that a little bit.
Okay, so why that makes me excited is you and I for years had to sit here and lament about the way that we always had to catch up with what was going on.
Yeah.
And for once, we got ourselves ahead of something.
We did.
And maybe finally, because we were willing to put in the effort on the front side and look at the horizon and say, hey, there might be a way for us to do a few things here in this environment. You never know. It's kind of like playing roulette. You don't know what part of the board the ball is going to land, but you're making your bets and you're trying to see if your hunch is going to play out. And in this instance, right, and present company included, I had no way of knowing that these things were going to turn out the way they did when I made the decision to try to get ahead of some of these things. But boy, I'm feeling really proud of myself for having done that opportunity. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to succeed while others fail. What I think it does is it gives us the opportunity to be seen as a little bit more of an expert in this topic.
Sure.
Than maybe other folks who would be asked about a similar set of questions. But I like, to me, things like, will a trade show happen in an exhibition hall or will it happen on a pair of VR glasses be the thing someday? And you and I have posited this question numerous times. I think we're closer to knowing that now than we were 22 months ago or however long.
Absolutely. Look at, I'll go back to the association a little bit. And you start looking at the profiles of some of the board members that we bring on. And I'm going to mention some names. So you have Danny Rosen, who brought the social good of building communities. It wasn't just some fringe element of the industry that was poking up at the board. It was a radical proponent of it, seated in the room as a voice. I look at Denise Tershro from Canada and the work that she does in choosing clients who share the same goals and philosophies, whether it be about product or about society. And she's now embedded in that board. She's on the board. And I think that, yeah, it used to be that there was a 20-year lag between what was happening outside the industry for it to make its way to the industry. We are neck and neck right now with retail and other marketplaces in ways that I think that the pandemic, I think we all feel we're kind of doubling down on some things. Like, I feel importantly about this. I recognize business and life is fragile. I'm not going to just, give it side trip.
No more shitty promo, Paul.
No more shitty promo. I could say that now. No more damn shitty promo. Stop doing that.
Finally, I'm going to get you a t-shirt.
I used to be able to say, I used to have to say there is no shitty promo, just misappropriated promo. No more shitty.
Well, there you have it. So that comprises that which will be the audio portion of our discussion. I'm so grateful for you.
Great. That's what they're going to just keep hearing.
No shitty promo. That's the way we finish this. There's no better way to finish this thing than to tell the people, look, you can do it better. We have a responsibility to our clients and the environment to do so. We've never been more poised to be seen as a leader in the marketplace for advertising spend when it comes to this discussion point. So let's just use it to our advantage. Let's let it be our strategic advantage when it's important. And it will continue to allow us the opportunity to regain those lost margin share dollars that we lost when we went from 24 million to 19 million. And thank God for PPE, because it would have been way worse than that.
Look, we're all stuck in our home. What other media besides Netflix, which is subscription based, made it into our homes, made it into homes with the impact of promotional products? Name one for me.
Not a one, sir. And that's
didn't happen.
I'm clipping that piece out and using that for my clients.
There you go.
All right. So here we are in the bonus section. You didn't even know I was going to let you do this. So Lord only knows what you're going to ask me, but this is the opportunity for Paul to ask Roger a question. And I am a little unnerved about what it is you might ask me.
Okay. A little bit of a setup.
Okay.
I have, I've moved from Dallas to Kansas City. That was another thing that happened this year. Got married, relocated, just a couple of little things I've thrown in there.
Just a few.
I've been spending a lot of time driving between Dallas and Kansas City. It's an 8-hour drive. And I've really gotten into podcasts. Okay. One of my favorite podcasts is Guy Raz, How I Built This.
Okay.
And just listening to these founder entrepreneurs just talk about what got them there and their passions. But he ends every podcast with the question, are you where you are because of luck, or is it because of hard work? So I'm asking you that question. You've built this brand as Roger Burnett. You've built your social promotions, your recognized volunteer and leader in the industry. Is it hard work, or luck?
It's definitely hard work. It is 100%. Like, right, that American Aquarium, one of our favorite bands, the name of the song is "The harder you work, the luckier you get."
That's right.
The next phrase is, "The more you get done, the less you regret." And I don't know how this happened, but I don't know how to not do this. Like, I have all the fun. I turn things that are work into things that are fun. You've been there, you've watched it happen.
Yep.
So whether it's toil or joy, I bring fun to the equation because that's just the way I roll. So maybe I have a little bit more capacity to work hard than most people because I don't see it as work most of the time.
Okay.
I see it as it's fun, it's enjoyable. If it's not fun, I probably won't try to even do it, you know. But things that maybe other people would look at on the surface and say, well, why would anybody want to do that? I immediately look at it and say, who can I do that with? Where can I go in the process by accepting this adventure? What other things might happen in the process if I'm willing to put myself in that position to say yes to that? Because if I say no, I know exactly what's going to happen. Exactly nothing. So by putting myself in that position to give myself the chance to be exposed to whatever experience I'm going to get, it's made me an addict for it.
Yeah. And maybe it makes it seem like you're lucky because it seems like you're doing something you enjoy, which doesn't look like hard work.
And for those that work with me, because of the number of things I'm involved in, they're astonished at the amount I'm capable of getting done.
Yeah.
And it's because the things that I'm choosing to put my effort and energy and attention to are things I really care about. And everything else really I don't have time for because I have pumped this air balloon as full as it possibly can go with the things that I love. And I've got to give up something to add something else to the mix. And for the most part, I'm really grateful for the chance to feel lucky to be able to make those kinds of decisions. But had I not put in the hard work from the very moment that I made that choice, then I don't think I would have had an opportunity to feel lucky like that, you know?
It's a perfect answer. It just falls in line with that whole, you know, people who work really hard seem to be lucky while they're just prepared for the luck when it comes their way.
Yeah.
They've done the work that make those opportunities doable. And the other thing, and we'll end on this note.
Okay.
Next year, we'll probably be talking about you being a grandfather.
Yeah. Hey,
So
you
there
know,
you go.
that would be great if I could have my little as yet unnamed granddaughter sitting here enjoying our conversation while we're doing this next year. That would be fantastic.
That would
I'm
be terrific.
over the moon. It's so great to be at this stage of where we're at with things, where you plant these seeds and then they go out in the world and they do amazing things, and then they bring little versions of themselves back to you to spend the latter part of your life. And if that's where we're at, I'm cool with that. I still got some work stuff I want to get done, but I'm all about letting the littles into the next stage of this for sure.
Well, this has been fun. I wish you a very, very happy holidays. And I'll see you in a little bit at Expo.
See you in just about a month, my friend. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.